Chattanooga to keep it supplied. Once the moment arrived when the Yankee Army had to abandon Atlanta, and it would, Southern cavalry and our people will harass and destroy it. In a purposely ambiguous reference, Davis mocked an unnamed individual who had accused the Confederate president of abandoning Georgia to her fate. This person, Davis declared, was not a man to save our country. Then came some plain talk. Georgia could expect little, if any, help from outside the state in the present crisis. What was needed at this critical time was for Southern women to endure their privations with stoic courage and for every patriotic male to flock to the colors. If one half the men now absent from the Army, without leave, will return to duty, we can defeat the enemy, Davis assured those present. Let no one despond, he finished. Let none distrust, and remember that if genius is the beautiful, hope is the reality. The next day, Davis traveled to Palmetto, some 25 miles southwest of enemy-occupied Atlanta, headquarters for General John B. Hood, commanding the Confederate Army of Tennessee. Hood was a wounded lion, if ever there was one. Once a vigorous, vital man, he had been cruelly whittled down by the war, his left arm crippled while leading troops at Gettysburg in July 1863, and his right leg amputated below the thigh from fighting at Chickamauga the following September. It was during Hood's painful recuperation spent in Richmond that he had visited often with Davis. The two found common ground and established a rapport. In time, Davis promoted Hood to lieutenant general and assigned him to lead a corps in the Army of Tennessee, then commanded by General Joseph E. Johnston. Hood's appointment came in time for the bitter spring campaign of 1864, which began in May. By July, Davis was thoroughly fed up with Johnston, who had slowed but not stopped or significantly damaged a much larger Union army pushing south from Chattanooga. Johnston, whose management of the campaign would spawn a rancorous post-war controversy, declined to keep Davis informed of his circumstances or intentions, even as he deftly backpedaled his soldiers to the gates of Atlanta. When Johnston intimated he was prepared to abandon the city to preserve the Army's freedom of movement, Davis acted. He removed Johnston from command and, to the surprise of many, promoted John Bell Hood to replace him. Thrust into a high place because he was a fighting general, Hood quickly undertook a series of fierce offensive strikes at the Union forces enfolding Atlanta. None succeeded in halting the Yankee juggernaut, and on the night of September 1st, Hood pulled the Army of Tennessee out of the Gate City, which immediately fell to Union forces, accompanied by much fanfare in the North. The Confederate president had expended considerable political capital in appointing Hood, and the reverses suffered by the Army of Tennessee had become a rallying point for anti-administration factions. In the wake of Atlanta's fall, there were even calls for Johnston's reinstatement, something that Davis refused to consider. Others suggested one of the Confederacy's underemployed heroes, General Pierre-Gustave Toutant-Beauregard, another on the president's blacklist. Hood had a ready explanation for his failure to hold the Gate City. It was, he stated, due to fumbling by some of his key subordinates and a lack of nerve on the part of his soldiers. Just a few weeks before their face-to-face, Hood had written Davis that, according to all human calculations, we should have saved Atlanta had the officers and men done what was expected of them. Hood singled out one of his corps commanders for most of the blame, Lieutenant General William J. Hardee. Some 16 years Hood Sr., Hardee possessed impeccable military bona fides, even if his manner was annoyingly distant, patrician, and judgmental. Hardee had already played a significant offstage role in undermining the man who had preceded Johnston in command of the Army of Tennessee, General Braxton Bragg. Yet when Bragg had been reassigned and the position offered to Hardee, he had declined, leaving Davis only the distasteful option of summoning Johnston. Hardee was no friend of Hood. While he did not question that officer's experience or courage, he had serious doubts regarding his ability to effectively manage such an important enterprise. Hood, in turn, suspected that Hardee was deliberately undermining his authority and reveling in his failures. Any ground for compromise had long since eroded, leaving Hood adamant that Hardee had to go. It was into this poisonous atmosphere that Jefferson Davis arrived at 3:30 p.m., September 25th. Fittingly, it was raining.